The illusion of freedom under federal control. In 1921, the federal Sheppard-Towner Maternity Act was enacted, introducing the concept of birth registration, which evolved into what is known today as the birth certificate. The act was marketed as a means to reduce maternal and infant mortality and to protect the health of mothers and infants. However, its actual purpose was to establish a federal birth registry, creating what are now referred to as federal children. Under the doctrine of Parens Patriae, the government assumes guardianship over American children, treating them as if they are owned by the state. Through public school enrollment and various licensing requirements, individuals are conditioned to seek permission from the government for daily activities in a society that is purported to be free. Before 1921, birth records were typically kept in family Bibles, considered official without government intervention. Since the introduction of birth certificates, Americans have been required to register births with state governments, despite the absence of any federal law mandating this. The states assert that registering a child's birth serves as proof of U.S. citizenship, and a social security number is now required at birth. In 1933, President Roosevelt declared bankruptcy, with the governors of the 48 states pledging their state's full faith and credit, along with that of their citizens, as collateral for loans from the Federal Reserve. The state claims an interest in every child within its jurisdiction and can nullify parental rights, appointing a guardian over the child if deemed necessary. Each birth certificate identifies the child as a valuable asset, with the Social Security number serving as a tracking mechanism for that asset. This perspective suggests that children are viewed as property of the state, effectively designated as human resources within a bankrupt system. In 1923, a lawsuit was filed against federal officials administering the Maternity Act, claiming it was unconstitutional and aimed at inducing states to relinquish their reserved rights under the 10th Amendment. The court noted that while the act did not require the plaintiff to yield anything, it imposed a burden of taxation on the inhabitants rather than the states. The act was criticized for granting undefined powers to federal agencies concerning maternity and infancy, potentially leading to enforced regulations such as mandatory prenatal examinations and restrictions on midwifery. The Children's Bureau was granted extensive powers to cooperate with state agencies, raising concerns about federal encroachment on parental rights and the sanctity of the home. The act was deemed invalid as it assumed powers not granted to Congress and usurped local police powers. Subsequent court cases reinforced that Congress cannot legislate for states or delegate state powers improperly. Although the Maternity Act was eventually repealed, elements of it persist in other legislation. The shift in the government's view of human life has resulted in individuals being treated as human resources, subject to tracking and control. The call for national identification is framed as unconstitutional, as federal jurisdiction to legislate for states does not exist. The 10th Amendment guarantees state rights, and challenges to this could reinforce individual liberties. If the federal government claims ownership over citizens, it must provide legitimate authority for such demands. The foundational rights to liberty and freedom, upon which the nation was built, should not require individuals to plead for recognition of their status. If true freedom is an illusion, it may be time to address the realities of governance in America.